bring the drugs back as soon as you can. We're worried.
You have no more messages.
Police have launched a murder inquiry after 3 men were found shot dead in Essex. A farmer discovered the bodies this morning in a Range Rover parked on a farm track near Chelmsford.
The dead men are said to include nightclub king Tony Tucker, leader of the notorious Essex boys, who were known for supplying ecstasy to raves across the county.
They were big shots. Tony wanted full control over the movement and sale of ecstasy. Money became his god. And he didn't mind people getting hurt. I don't know who pulled the trigger, but they were picking up enemies by the day.
These were guys that really lived in the murky underworld. It could be any one of a number of people.
This case is a classic detective story.
I've dealt with some serious crime, but this was the most serious.
Pressure is mounting on police to find a suspect as Essex appears to be gripped in a full-scale drug war.
You need to stand up for law and order. Stop the pushers poisoning our children.
2 ruthless gunmen received 3 life sentences at the Old Bailey. The convictions have been described as some of the most important in Essex in the past 30 years.
My brother, he's not a killer. You know, he's not a violent man. He's not Jack.
As a detective, there's no fingerprints, there's no blood, there's no DNA. So you've got to ask yourself the question, are the real killers behind bars?
Tony Tucker, he's my best pal. And I still don't know what happened. It's all whispers and rumours. They've made books, films about it. What's fact? What's fiction?
Someone out there knows what really happened.
I was involved at a very high level. You try and get to the truth of the murders, and this is the truth.
That was the year Rover landed. Before then we were just getting pissed in some cheesy nightclubs or something. But as soon as we heard about illegal raves, we knew how to get in there and be part of something different. The areas where we lived, they were industrial areas, you know. All the warehouses were kind of derelict because where Thatcher's government had empowered entrepreneurs, if you were in the stock market, it was great. If you were a factory worker, you were suffering. You know, places were getting closed down.
These massive illegal buildings, they were like the perfect venues for us to put in parties.
To set up a warehouse party, we had a warehouse hunter. So he'd be driving around the back streets looking to find a warehouse, and when he came up with a warehouse, he'd jimmy off the door, break the padlock, put a new padlock on it, and that was our location. That could come sometime on a Friday night, wouldn't even the night before the party. People wanted to go for the excitement of going to the legal rave. After that, it just exploded like a whirlwind. You know, it went overnight, no one saw it coming, and it literally just took over, and we were at the centre of it. We were putting on party after party after party, and Essex was loving it.
We were young, this is like we were 16, 17.
We couldn't believe how fast the whole scene had grown. Literally, none of it would be possible without ecstasy.
Ecstasy brought them together because it broke down all the barriers and people went there and they partied together. That's what opened up the market in terms of drugs. Anyone could sell it and no one would take them off you. working as a doorman in nightclubs. And it wasn't really a drug scene then. I'm 29 years of age, never took a drug before in my life. But then one day my mate asked me if I'd heard about the warehouse raves. And he said, we need a security team. The next thing you know, we're in the middle of nowhere. Like an East abandoned warehouse, music blaring and lasers and strobes. They're all buzzing, hugging each other. I was talking to my mate Dave. I said, what are people taking? He says, no alcohol. I can't see no joints, nothing like that. He said, ease, ecstasy. And I went, well, what's that? People buying pills for like a tenner. He said, have one. Try it. He said, don't take no one. He said, just have half. He said, they're really powerful. I went, well, this little pill here like that. I went, come on, let's do it. All of a sudden, the music made sense. And I just felt my body, like, everything going. It was like the best buzz I'd ever been on in my life. And we was walking through the dance floor, and like Dave's like 6 foot something, I'm like 17.5 stone of steroids. I went, I can't move, Dave. He went, what? I said, I'm struggling. He went, I'm stuck in his stroke. I went, hold my hand, I'll walk you through. You can imagine these two doormen walking through all the crowds, holding hands like that. I was completely out of my nut. Then I had another one. Full jacket off, everything, got a tight vest on, you know, dancing away. People going, Carl, you've got to work. I went, no, I'm all right, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm on stage. Must have been about 4 hours. It was gone. It was like an whole world. I discovered a complete new universe.
And I'm thinking, no wonder this is where everyone is going.
Acid house parties, or raves as they're called by those who frequent them, have become notorious for alleged drug taking, traffic queues jamming up the roads, late night noise and litter problems.
The parties that have taken place in Essex,
they cause tremendous disruption. We know there's a lot of drug consumption, drug dealing going on.
It got to a point where millions of people were consuming MDMA over every weekend.
This is one of the most serious problems the Western world faces. We have to do something here at home.
Government, media, police, they all hated it.
In every single newspaper, they were trying to drum up as much opposition to us as they possibly could. Once the police really clocked on, every single weekend, you know, an army of police were out just to stop illegal parties.
Because of pressure from politicians, the press and public, the police have now logged details of over 1,000 party helpers on computer. It's from here they're coordinating the crackdown. This is the party patrol, standing firm till 3 a.m. The ravers were frustrated, not violent. They believed their rights were being infringed.
From a policing point of view, ecstasy was something that kind of happened all of a sudden. You had to kind of get your head around it very quickly, because at these warehouse parties, people were starting to be taken ill with an overdose. You started to notice things like hospital admissions on a Friday night. I remember doing support calls to go down and help shut these things down. It would be literally like two tribes going to war. You know, you would stand up amongst them. Not only did you have the party goers, but you had the organisers. They hated us, we hated them. It was all out war. The police was at the point where enough was really enough.
I've never seen any violence started by any of these youngsters here who just want to dance. If there's ever any violence started, they started by them. And you'll all agree with me, won't you? The people dance!
Police officers have asked the government for more powers to deal with the problems caused by so-called ravers to stop the huge gatherings
or 6 months imprisonment.
It was like the last days of ancient Rome. You know, common sense told you it was the end. It really was. When you closed the warehouses down, you had all these people who wanted to sell drugs. The only place for an acid house movement to go was the nightclubs. And that's how you saw the rise of people like Tony Tucker. Tony Tucker, he's just one of the names that sticks with you. I heard his name on the scene in Essex. He had his own security company, doing the doors and big nightclubs and everything. And then one night, I was out with my doorman, we were partying. Someone said to me, "That's Tony Tucker, do you know him?" I went, "I know the name." I went over and we started talking. And then we were on our own, just me and him, munching pills, out of our nuts, dancing, laughing, and that's basically the first time we met. Over a pill. Not like over a pub, drinking a pub, it was like over a pill, yeah. He was just like me. Normal background, working class family. We got really, really close. He became like a brother to me. And we sort of ended up doing sort of security firms together.
I worked with Tony Tucker in a nightclub in Romford. Fancied themselves a hard man like Kenny Dorman does, I suppose. But he considered himself, you know, a good-looking fella. Didn't like to be hit in the face, you know. He said he'd leave that to the likes of me. He was a good guy. He could have gone a different route if someone else had offered a different opportunity. But he had a fierce drive to be wealthy. He was always looking for the next opportunity to make money.
Acid House, the music that inspired a cult and official outrage. The music and its fans have taken over Clubland.
Just not rave and just be happy, that's all it is, man.
There are huge profits to be made, both legally and illegally.
One night, the doorman arrested somebody for selling drugs. They brought him up to the office to give him a clipping. They emptied out his pockets and Tony saw like he had $2,000 in his pockets and a whole load of pills. And he sat him down, instead of giving out hiding, he said, "Explain all this. Well, what's the money? How did you get that much, you know, in 3 hours?" And then he was sharp like that, you know. He saw an opportunity immediately. Tony knew he was in the perfect position to take control of it. All security who run the doors control the club. Tony definitely had brains, a criminal intelligence, really. I worked in a club in Southend, and Tony said to me, if they're making money selling drugs in the club that I'm running, surely I should be doing that. And he said it's easy to allow certain people to come in and sell their drugs in the club, providing they pay you a percentage or a rent, 20%, 40% of it. And anyone else that would try to do that obviously would be ejected. It was money handed to him immediately. Next Friday I'm going to have $2,000 in my pocket and another $2,000 Saturday. And the following week then it was $3,000 and $4,000, and eventually he was taking the bones of 10,000 a weekend, you know. Tony then started going to some of his nightclubs, telling them you have to sell my drugs now, which gave him more profit. After that, Tony did rocket into like big time, brand new Jaguars, new Porsches. He had power, money, drugs, and the feeling of being invincible.
I was barmaid, working at Raquel's, one of his clubs. The atmosphere was always electric. And everybody was always on ecstasy. People were popping different pills, all like that. So by the time it was 2 o'clock, it was absolutely crazy. Being truthful, I can't remember having any fear or worry about it in any way. At the end of the day, everybody in there was the same, you know, so no, nothing bad's happened to nobody and everybody's having a great time. But then I heard in the news.
Leah Betts collapsed after taking a tablet which police believe may have been contaminated.
Detectives say the tablet taken by Leah was one of 4 bought by someone she knew at a Basildon nightclub.
After that, everybody panicked. It was being said that she bought the drug that put her into a coma in the club.
I think it's horrible. Can't believe it happened. I think it's happened a lot of people's lives as well. It's definitely happened mine a lot more. I would definitely never take anything.
Apparently, it was one of her mates that had actually passed it to her. But then, who did he get it from? Who was the dealer above? I just didn't think that when the people found out the answer to that question, it could end up in murder.
My daughter paid £10 for this pill. That's very likely to cost her her life. Got love for my daughter. Got anger for the people with the drugs. And I hate this bastard that supplied them.
For us as a local newspaper, this story was huge for us. We heard that this young woman took an ecstasy tablet at her 18th birthday party, bought at Raquel's nightclub in Essex. These were unusually strong tablets. The medical advice was that if you were going to take ecstasy, to drink lots of water because of the strength, and she was panicking, got worried about it. She managed to consume 7 litres in about 90 minutes. It made her brain swell. It meant she became violently ill before collapsing and she slipped into a coma. Her father, Paul Betts, made the decision to take that photograph of Leah Betts lying in her bed with the tubes and share it with the media.
Leah's fight ended this morning, 4 days after her 18th birthday.
The dangers of drugs, in particular ecstasy, have been much highlighted following the death of 18-year-old Leah Betts.
She was the headline story absolutely everywhere.
For Leah's parents, the grieving continues, remembering a daughter who should have still been enjoying her teenage years.
That picture carries more than I could ever say. Just look at it. Do you want to end up like that?
In those days, there was very much a perception that things like ecstasy, they were done by a certain group of people, people who'd been left behind by society. Nice, middle-class families weren't impacted by that kind of thing. By taking that photograph, Paul and Janet Betts said, no, this is everybody's story. This could be your child lying in this hospital bed. And it just shook society up enormously.
Today, the Home Secretary announced that police forces around the country will step up the fight against drug suppliers.
The pushers must be punished. We owe it to Leah's parents and millions of other parents to stop the pushers poisoning our children.
More than 30 officers are now engaged in the hunt for the dealer of the drug that killed 18-year-old Leah Betts.
An anonymous teenage caller told police of an ecstasy supplier inside Raquel's nightclub, where Leah is thought to have bought her tablet.
I was part of a unit who would specifically focus on the pubs and clubs. Because there was now direct information coming out, we suspected that Tony Tucker was the person controlling the drugs within the club. There was talk that Tony had directly or indirectly supplied the ecstasy tablet that killed Leah Betts. You know a lot of things that are going on, but can you prove them? Can you do something about it?
I remember a senior officer started throwing out the names of anybody suspected of dealing drugs in their nightclub, and we were just told to go and arrest people on suspicion of supply. And try and turn them as informants in order to start targeting criminals like Tucker at a higher level.
We knew Tony was getting more and more worried that the ecstasy would lead back to him. After the police hammered down, there was so much pressure, so much tension. He was going crazy. He thought everyone was going to squeal on me and I'm threatening them first. So he threatened everyone. Don't you dare put my name up or I'll kill you or I'll do this or I'll shoot you first. Was kicking and shouting and abusing people. He was threatening the doorman in Raquel's. You can all take the blame for it, you're not bringing it back to me. Didn't care about anyone but themselves. Some of these dealers were running for the hills before they got caught up in it. Because it wasn't just the police who were upset with the situation. This whole anti-drugs crusade upset a lot of these big gangsters. Tucker was in the firing line for that, for sure.
My life evolved around nightclubs at the time. I was running one of the largest security company in Great Britain. I was doing all the raves, all the clubs in the West End, earning a lot of money. Ecstasy was the major financial pin for everyone and everything. Every firm, every club, every doorman, every criminal, every gangster was involved somehow in the movement and sale of ecstasy. The near-bet situation pulled the heat down on everything. More undercover open in the nightclubs, more stop and search than there had been before. This new anti-drug campaign gave them the opportunity to get right in on a massive scale like we had never seen. A lot of people thought Tony Tucker had something to do with what happened to the events, and on top of that, he had already made some powerful enemies. Once you've actually got the criminal fraternity itself imploding on you, it's only got one ending. It's only got one ending.
Yeah, what's the problem, sir? We just drove down our farm track. I'm across the range road, but we played with it. Yeah, I don't know what's happening, bloody motor over. It's just like our farm retinue. What our farm retinue appears to have been shot. We'll get something on the track, mate.
I've dealt with some serious crime, but this was the most serious, as big as Essex had had. I first arrived at the scene, it was, in my opinion, absolute carnage. There was a lot of blood. In the front passenger seat was Tucker. He'd taken one shot to the head. And there were two others. The driver, Rolf, a local drug dealer, was still holding the steering wheel and looking straight ahead. And it was almost as if he'd stopped at red traffic lights. And in the back seat was a very big man, known to be involved with drugs distribution. He had gunshot wounds to the stomach. It looked as if he'd been shot more than once. I think the killings took place as soon as they'd arrived. I don't think they had any chance. They were lured here to be executed.
It was beside this farm gate near Chelmsford that the Range Rover containing the men's bodies was found. All three were shot in the head at least twice at close range with a shotgun.
The murder scene already teeming with reporters and photographers anxious to find out what has happened.
Two local men discovered the Range Rover at 8 o'clock this morning as they made their way along the farm track.
Two men in the front that I see looked as though they were asleep. You know, I mean, we've seen vehicles parked down there before, and usually it's people going off to take their dogs for a walk or a courting couple. You know, we don't really expect to find something like that first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I just remember it by now, as if it was like yesterday. That morning, I was just driving along. On the radio, they kept saying in the news flashes, 3 men have been found killed in a Range Rover. Didn't say no names, nothing. And then my phone rang. My mate sprung me and he said to me, there's some rumours going around. That's your mate Tony that's died. I went, no, fuck off. I think perhaps I didn't want to believe it. So I've got on the phone to Tony. I kept ringing.
Tony's phone, can you give us a ring? Cheers, mate.
I just had that gut feeling. It just felt wrong. So now I've run his missus. Just got up on the phone. I heard her screaming. Tony's dead. He's fucking dead. I remember just laying down on the bed and crying my eyes out. He was my best pal, you know what I mean? And after that, all I was left with was questions. What happened to Tony, Pat and Craig, but not knowing was doing me head in. I kept asking myself, did they upset the wrong people? Someone from the underworld. I mean, it was very professional. Was it a proper assassin? Was it because of what happened with Leah Betts? I didn't have the answers. No one did.
Time of the murders, I was on the South East Regional Crime Squad targeting serious and organised crime. As a result of information that Essex Police had received at the time, police could see that Tucker, alongside one of the other victims, Pat Tate, was clearly involved with some of the UK's most prolific and serious organised criminals living in Essex. These people were supplying ecstasy across the whole UK. These were dangerous people and they were violent people and gangsters. death of Leah Betts caused problems within the criminal fraternity itself. There was heat being placed on villains. In the days before Tony Tucker was murdered, police had been raiding premises, taking out lorry loads of drugs and arresting people. Organised criminals lost a huge amount of money and a vast supply of drugs. And so there was a potential motive that, organised crime took them out because of the increase in police activity. Because we were looking at crime groups linked to the drugs trade before the murders were committed. We were already listening in on top-tier criminals. We bugged their phones, bugged their premises, bugged their cars. We had bugs in some of the most senior criminals' business premises or homes. On one occasion, I even had a probe in an office that was being used by the heads of organised crime. We were listening to them discussing how they were going to murder people, their intentions to murder people, so we knew we'd been right in the middle of their operations. But the intelligence around the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, we were getting no feedback as to who had been involved in this murder, which is unusual. It's very strange because, with a murder like that, anyone within the criminal fraternity would be talking about it.
Everything about their murder just raised more questions. There was a potential motive, but, when you try and add logic and try and piece it together, what's happened and who's done it, very difficult, very difficult. And then questions started to be asked. Could it be somebody completely different?
Got love for my daughter. I've got anger for the people with the drugs. And I hate this bastard that's applied.
We heard that the police were looking into Paul Betts as a suspect. He was an ex-policeman, so he could have potentially had that knowledge from his colleagues that Tony Tucker was the one who ran the door at Red House. He said that Paul Betts, on the day of the murders, decided to take a scenic route back from Leah Betts' grave, and he'd been in the area of the murders. That evening, Paul Betts had decided to go for a drive and test out his new four-wheel drive, and had been in that area again.
We shall always be with the Lord. Comfort one another with these words.
Obviously, there was clear motive. His daughter had been mercilessly killed by 3 scumbag drug dealers on her 18th birthday. That could push anyone over the edge. And on top of that, it was well known he had experience with firearms. It made sense.
Once the connection had been made, this was going to move incredibly quickly, and it did. Paul was brought in for questioning, and obviously that could have wrapped things up. Of course, it doesn't always work like that. The murder team found a vital piece of evidence that changed everything. He'd filmed an interview for national television an hour before the murders happened.
She screamed, it never affected me like this. And that scream of pain and the cry for help will haunt me every day tomorrow, because I didn't know what to do.
You can't be in 2 places at once, and so he was ruled out of any kind of involvement in this. So it left the investigation wide open.
Police detectives investigating the brutal killing of 3 men on a farm track in Essex are yet to make an arrest and are now airing a televised appeal urging anyone with information to come forward.
It was a crime which pushed everything else off the front pages. It was a cold-blooded, professional killing. The victims had many enemies, but which one wanted them executed? If you have any information which might help detectives, then call them now. Alternatively, you can call Crime Stoppers on the usual number.
We had to get to the facts, but we were working with fairly scant information. The forensic guys did their best, but as things turned out, there was very little that would identify the perpetrators from that scene.
Certainly it was carried out very quickly and efficiently. Whether it was done by an associate of these three men or by a specific hitman, I have no idea at the moment.
I was in the spotlight. You'd want to be successful in clearing up the crime because that shows that the police force is effective in its operations. There was also a huge press interest in this case. The top crime reporters were pestering me beyond what was normal.
The story just kept going and going. Oh, it was enormous, it was everywhere. You've already got the nation's press descending after Leobet's death. Just a month later, you have a drug-connected gangland killing of 3 men. Suddenly it's looking like Essex is the epicenter of this giant drugs war that's going on. So it must have put Essex police under enormous stress to resolve the situation.
As yet, no witnesses to the murder have come forward, leaving police with only questions as to what really happened.
The net went wide out to acquaintances from years ago. Even took a statement from someone who used to work with Tony, and he hadn't seen Tucker in 5 years, you know. You could see there was too much pressure to solve it. And it was too big a case to just go on the cold case, because they'd be beaten over the head for years if they didn't solve this.
Police come round, knocked on the door, said about Tony and that. You know, the reason we need to speak to you because we've got a list of names, people capable of killing them. And he said, your name's on that list? And I went, fuck, if you're going to say that, that's been best. But what are you talking about? I went, you're fucking mad. But they come round to see me about 2 or 3 times at my house, questioned me there. They were scrutinising you. You must know what happened. What happened? No, do you know? Who do you think done it? That's how desperate the police were, and they didn't have a clue, you know what I mean?
Today, Rolf's girlfriend appealed for help in finding the killer or killers.
I'd just like anyone who was with them maybe in the afternoon who knows anything about what's happened to them, or if they see anything, to just come forward. We need all the help we can get.
Everybody wants somebody to be held accountable, but to try and find out who and how was proving to be a massive task. So many questions that all needed answers. And then somebody who's on the murder investigation said to us, we've made a major breakthrough. We've got somebody from the underworld who's talking to us and saying, I can tell you who did it. It was huge.
Time is 23:26 on Monday, the 13th of May, 1996. please introduce yourself for the team?
Darren Nichols.
First time I'd ever come across Darren Nichols was on the day that I arrested him. He was involved in the drug trade, he was involved in importation. We'd become aware that there was a new importation from Holland into Essex. A surveyor saw parcels of drugs arrive at the beach. We followed the vehicles. Darren Nichols was then stopped when I found the drugs in his car. He'd been caught paying to rights. He was probably looking at a substantial prison sentence, but I had no idea how significant a role Nichols would play subsequently in this murder investigation. What happened after that changed everything, because to tell his story, potentially get a reduced sentence for his crimes, Nichols offered to become a supergrass and give evidence about what had happened on the night of the murders.
You've made the decision you want to tell us all. You know it's got to be everything, okay?
Yeah.
Regards to the shooting of Patrick Tate, Craig Rolfe and Tony Tucker. So now it's over to you.
Yeah. Mick rings me up and he says, "Here, we've got to see you. We've got a coat deal going down."
Mick? You mean Mickey Steele?
Mickey Steele, yeah. He said, "Jack will be there. Jack Rhodes. You drivers." Jack got out of the car. He had a bag with him. I just thought, money. He said, "We'll be 5 minutes." Jack Rhodes got back in the car. Then Meeks got in the front of the car. And then they started chatting. They said, "Those fuckers are out of our hair for good now." Fucking sorted them right out. Killed all three. And I'm just sitting there thinking, fucking hell, don't ever want to upset these two.
This was massive. You could tell going into the investigation room, the atmosphere changed. We think we might have them. I don't think you ever say we've got them because of the people you're dealing with, what was his motivation for saying it and what have you, but it was like, wow, we might get a conviction. This is huge.
Today, Michael Steele and Jack Womes were charged with triple murder at Chelmsford Magistrate Court. It marks a major breakthrough in a case that has become a symbol for the new war on drugs.
This case is a classic detective story. It is not often that we get these days a chance to actually pit our wits and our expertise against other people who have perpetrated a crime such as this.
I was delighted, of course, when it all came together. This was a tremendous success.
Two ruthless gunmen received 3 life sentences at the Old Bailey today for the execution of 3 drug dealers on a remote Essex farm track.
In sentencing the 2 men to life imprisonment, the judge told them they were dangerous with a hard and ruthless edge. They crossed your paths, he said, and you showed them no mercy.
Was it 100% concrete? No, I don't think so. There's sometimes you think, I'm absolutely confident, there's no stone unturned, this case is watertight. I think it is fair to say that it was very reliant on one person's evidence. I think at best this would be certainly a not 100% sure case.
If you'd have asked me at the time if Michael Steele and Jack Williams were guilty of the offence, I'd have told you absolutely, no doubt about it. But there's so many questions that remain unanswered. Knowing what I know now, I can't say that I believe this crime has been solved.
Night time, make me pillow wet, tears, and you just me wife and kids.
My brother, he's not a killer, not Jack.
Looking at this case now, I realise that if we don't solve this, he's going to die in prison.
I don't know pulled the trigger, but if they took him there, they took him to their death.
The Range Rover is the original crime scene, and we found it.
I'm sure what Darren Nichols said was true.
Darren Nichols was a drug dealer, facing years and years in prison. Did he lie, or did he tell the truth?